So E3 is finished. Battlefield 4, its first multiplayer reveal, is now out in the wild, and we got to see some pretty amazing things. So in this video I am going to round up absolutely everything that we know about Battlefield 4 so far. So get comfortable guys, you might want to grab a cup of tea, cup of coffee, maybe a bit of cake. But this is going to be a long video, so sit tight. I just want to clarify, I'm going to go through as much as generally possible. I'm not going to go through all the different weapons that are available. I'm going sort of through multiplayer mechanics, information about the multiplayer, rather than going through into such depth like weapon customization and stuff like that. I've done videos in the past about that, you can just check them back on my channel. Okay, so here we go. The Xbox One, PlayStation 4 and PC. All of those platforms will have 64 player maps and 2 slots for Commander, making a total of 66 players in one game. The Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 versions will however be limited back down to 24 players, as they were with Battlefield 3. Speaking of next generation consoles, they will be running at 60 frames per second. No screen resolution for those next generation consoles has been released yet, but I can imagine it's going to be 720p. As for current generation consoles, well, details are a little sparse on screen resolution again, however they are going to be stuck at 30 frames per second. Squads now have 5 soldiers instead of just 4. This is more to get Battlefield 4 prepared for the esports scene. Now that comes in tying with the spectator mode, I'll get onto that later. But with those 5-man squads comes Commander mode. You will be able to play as Commander on console, PC and tablet form as well. Much like the other classes in Battlefield 4, Commander mode has its own experience and XP point ranking system, so it's just like any other class. The more you use it, the more you rank up. Something to consider that the Commander mode does not take up a slot on the server. So that means if you're playing on console, it doesn't take up one of the slots. Even if you're on current generation consoles and you're in a 24-man server, Commander mode doesn't take up one of those slots. Currently, Commander mode is only available in 2 game modes, and that's Rush and Conquest. Of course, there are going to be limitations to Commander mode, obviously because there's only 2 per game. If you do want to play Commander mode, you can imagine there's going to be a bit of a queue to get into a server, but DICE does have a system that it will implement. DICE is going to create a sort of gating system, or a certain point that you must get to in the game before you're allowed to even be selected as Commander. Now obviously the point of a commander is to control the battlefield, so obviously they're going to be giving orders to squads, and specifically the squad leader. These orders do not have to be followed if you don't want to, however if you do, you're going to get an XP bonus for it. The more XP they gain throughout a game, the more the commander can actually do. Specifically for Conquest, that applies too. The more flags you hold, the more the commander can do for you. I.e., the more XP you gain, commanders can drop ammo and vehicles and med packs onto the troops on the ground. So if you're in need of something and you've got enough XP, the commander can drop it to you. One point that is worth mentioning, the tabletop view that's available in Commander mode, that's the only one you're going to be able to use, is a new way of spawning into Battlefield. The Commander screen will be used as a deployment menu where you can click on different objectives around the base as long as you control them, or click on your squad or a vehicle and you can spawn into those. So there'll be no static menu like there is in Battlefield 4, you're going to get an overview of the map and it's more dynamic so that you can click on it and spawn in wherever you like. So now we've covered the Commander class, we'll get onto the actual classes that you can play on the ground with in Battlefield 4. They are essentially the same as what you get in Battlefield 3. You've got Assault, Engineer, Support and Recon. The piece of information here is suggesting that more weapons will be available to use across different classes than any other time in Battlefield before, so weapon balance and class balance is going to become less of an issue. Still sticking with squads, squad specializations are being revamped. We haven't got too much confirmed information about this, but from the graphics that we've seen in the live streams, we're led to believe that it's going to be a sort of progress system, whereby when squads do different actions together or gain more squad points, that bar will increase and have access to more specializations as you play. Weapon customization and vehicle customization is going to be bigger and better than ever before. A different persistence model is going to be inputted as well, and if you by persistence I mean like an XP model where you can go deeper than we did with Battlefield 3 and sort of unlock more things along the way. I recently did a video on the weapon customization that is available in the pre-alpha footage that we've been seeing in the live stream, so there's a link in the description to that video if you want to go check that out. Now, something that we're all interested in is the game modes that are going to be included in Battlefield 4. So far, the only things that have been confirmed are Conquest, Rush, and Team and Squad Deathmatch. DICE has confirmed that there will be 2 more game modes revealed to us in the near future, and they have plans to translate a few of the game modes that were in Battlefield 3 across to Battlefield 4 as well. They didn't specifically say what those game modes were going to be. I'd like to think it was Titan mode from previous Battlefield games, and I'd really like to see Capture the Flag come across from Battlefield 3 and previous Battlefield games as well. And just to tack on, Hardcore mode will make an appearance as well. Moving on to some more graphical capabilities of Battlefield 4, the wave technology that we've been seeing in the single player demos so far, so that's Fishing in Baku and the Angry Sea trailer that we saw in the Xbox One reveal, that is going to be making its way into multiplayer too. The idea being that when you get in the water in Battlefield 3, the wave technology is different. Obviously there's not a huge amount of waves in Battlefield 3, but different people see different graphics. In Battlefield 4, they want to unify the experience, and those waves affect everybody on the battlefield in real time. So sticking with the real-time theme, we're going to move on to Levolution, which is essentially DICE's answer to destruction. They've specifically named it Levolution because it doesn't just include destruction. So far what we've seen in the multiplayer reveal is that giant skyscraper being able to be knocked down at any point in the game. That is user created. My point being that you can just knock it down whenever you feel like it. You don't just have to wait for a specific point like you do in Caspian Border in Battlefield 3. You have to wait till the end of a Conquest or Rush match. It happens when you, the person, knocks that skyscraper down. They've also mentioned that a bollard system is available in that multiplayer map too, where that certain bridges have bollards that come up above them that cannot be knocked over by tanks, and you have to have specific information to unlock those barriers to cross the bridge. Levolution is a way of describing how the battle is changing and how the environment is changing during the course of a match, so how the user decisions actually affect gameplay. So sticking with destruction, expect micro-destruction to make a return. If you don't know what micro-destruction is, that's the destruction you saw in the Close Quarters map pack for Battlefield 3. All of those particles of wood and all of that flying across the map, expect that to return in Battlefield 4. So moving away from that sort of destruction and graphical side of things, we're going to move on to a little bit more gameplay, specifically naval warfare. So far all we've seen are the attack boats for Battlefield 4, and they look pretty beastly. They look like they have 4 seats in them, 1 for driver, 2 weapon seats, and 1 just sort of standing passenger seat. The weapons that we've seen on them thus far is a 30mm cannon and a TOW launcher. And we do know that when the vehicle is disabled, you can make a quick getaway on 2 jet skis that are attached to the back of the attack boats. A little bit more about naval warfare, but this is to do with the infantry side of things. You're now able to swim at different speeds, so you can now do normal swim or sprint swim, and you can also push the crouch button while you're swimming to dive underneath the water and carry on swimming, so you can stay undetected. And personally for this thing, I'm really excited. You can now use your secondary weapon while you're in the water. So now you're not going to come across those awkward situations where an enemy meets you in the middle of the sea on Gulf of Oman and all you can do is sit there and rock backwards and forwards into each other. So now that we're talking about the gameplay a little bit, we're going to move on to sort of the server side of things and sort of platform specific things that are going to be happening. Now DICE did notice that for the console versions of Battlefield 3 there were a lot of rented servers on console that had quite a lot of quirky game modes that people really weren't interested in. So DICE's answer to this is going to be putting up a lot more DICE official servers for Battlefield 4. So if you just want to play the plain old simple Conquest on Siege at Shanghai, you can play that. There will be a DICE official server running normal game modes in Battlefield 4. Speaking of DICE official things, we now have a spectator mode that will be included in the final release. I've also done a video on spectator mode, so if you do wish to check that out, there is a link below as well. I'm not going to completely explain it again, but it's pretty much better than any other spectator mode that we've ever seen before. There's all the normal cameras and there's a few different things in there as well. It's all pre-alpha stuff, so it will change and there will be more features added, but it's looking pretty cool right now. People were asking for a battle recorder, which is essentially a spectator mode but with a recording function. DICE are not going to be including its own battle recorder. It would rather let people use the included recorders on the Xbox One and the PS4. Now they didn't really mention anything to do with the current generation consoles, but I can imagine there's not going to be a recording function there either. But for the PC, they're just going to be letting people use the normal recording software that they use to record gameplays right now, like Fraps and DxTory. Now, I mentioned naval warfare back a minute ago, but we didn't really mention just vehicle warfare. Now, there's something in Battlefield 3 that really bloody annoyed me, and that is when a noob gets into a helicopter and doesn't know how to fly it. DICE will be including a sort of tutorial mode in Battlefield 4, teaching people who don't know how to fly jets and don't know how to fly helicopters how to fly them. This way it doesn't impact the XP of the person who's trying to learn, and it doesn't annoy players on the battlefield because, let's face it, we all get annoyed when someone jumps into a vehicle that they don't know how to drive. And the last thing on this list is Battlelog. This is something that really split the community in Battlefield 3. A lot of people thought it was worthless. If you're playing on consoles, I can't imagine you use Battlelog a lot because, of course, it's on a PC, which means you needed a PC to access it. They've tried to solve that problem by making an iOS and an Android app. Believe it or not, the Android app only got released a couple of weeks ago, but they have tried to remedy that problem. So for Battlefield 4, they're going to be deeply integrating Battlelog into it. A lot of PC players like to alt-tab out of games, things like that. They like to check their stats as they're playing. They want to sort of integrate that system into the console side of Battlefield 4. So they want consoles to have the same experience for Battlelog as what you're going to be getting on a PC. There's nothing confirmed so far about how they're going to do that, but they pretty much know that they're going to be integrating Battlelog a lot more heavily than they did in Battlefield 3. And one final thing to do with Battlelog, you will now be able to actually alter your loadout in Battlelog and then it be transferred into a new game when you come to play. So that means you could sort of alter your Battlefield 4 loadout on your mobile so that when you get home you can instantly jump into a game with that loadout that you've just made. Right, so that's come to the end of my list about things that we definitely know about Battlefield 4. Now, there's a lot more things that we have seen over the last few days, a lot of intricate little things to do with, let's say, guns that we know are going to be in there, attachments that we know, sort of equipment that we know, vehicles, all that kind of stuff. But I sort of glanced over that because this is sort of the main core things that are going to be changing in Battlefield 4. But anyway, guys, I hope you found this video informative. There's a lot of information here to digest, and I hope you enjoyed your tea and cake that I asked you to go and get at the start of the video. But if you did enjoy it, don't forget to give me a like, guys. It really does help me out. And leave some comments below. Let me know what you think about all these changes in Battlefield 4. But my name is Westie, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.